welcome to the latest edition of Badger Herald Sports Video. I'm Max Henson, along with Adam Holt and Mike Fiametta, the 3 beat writers for the football team this year. And today we're talking Badger football as Wisconsin heads into the conference portion of their season, and they got the 24th ranked Michigan State Spartans coming up. But we're going to recap the non-conference portion and look ahead to what should be a good game in East Lansing. All right, let's start with the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, the Badgers came into the season, Adam, with a lot of high expectations on that side, arguably one of the top units in the country. Some weak opponents in the non-conference part of their schedule. Obviously, Arizona State proved to be a pretty good team, but what did you like from what you saw from the offensive side of the ball?
To start out with, you have to like where the Badgers' running game is. That's always going to be Wisconsin's strength, running the ball, pounding up the middle, and they have, obviously, Heisman candidate John Clay leading the way. He's got the nation's longest streak of 100-yard games and also the longest streak of games with at least one touchdown at 10 now. But you also have to like the freshman James White, who had a huge day, 145 yards on 11 carries and 4 touchdowns against Austin Peay last week. You have a real thunder and lightning thing with White and Clay, because Clay will pound right through the line, he's big back, and then you have the change of pace with White, who's a fast guy, he's shifty, he's got moves, vision, so obviously that's going to be a strength behind that big Wisconsin offensive line. I think you also have to be happy with where quarterback Scott Tolzien is. Last year that was a big question where he was going to be. Kind of came out of nowhere to take the starting job out of fall camp. But this year, first year since John Stockel, that Wisconsin had a returning quarterback that they knew what they were going to get, and he hasn't really disappointed. Had 3 touchdowns, 217 yards against Austin Peay. He hasn't thrown a pick in that game, and it's just been really efficient. He's not going to throw for 300, 400 yards every game, but as long as he limits the mistakes, which he's usually pretty hard on himself when he does throw an interception, then he's really something where you don't have to worry about how he's going to play. I mean, obviously that'll be tested more with Big Ten season coming up, and he did kind of disappear against Iowa and Ohio State last season, but with another season under his belt, it looks right now like he's going to be a real focal point of this offense, being able to put up points and control the clock. Yeah,
heading into conference play, the Badgers obviously put up 70 points against Austin Peay. Not the strongest competition, more or less like a high school team, but still have to be impressed with Tolzien, completing 15 to 17 passes. His completion percentage has been around 80% the entire year. So a good start for the offense as they head into obviously a tougher defense in Michigan State. Let's get to the flip side of this now, Mike. What haven't you liked about the offense? Obviously there were some mistakes made earlier in the season. Your thoughts on how they looked and kind of what are the negatives we've seen so far?
Well, like you said, there's not a lot to not like. For me, though, biggest concern is Tolzien not having enough time with the starting receivers, Nick Toon and David Gilreath. Toon only played week 1 against UNLV, had the turf toe injury. Gilreath, meanwhile, concussion against San Jose State on that nasty hit, returning a punt. Both should play this week, but they're both veterans. Tolzien does know them well, obviously, after last year and basically just week 1, but still coming in, working out timing. He's been playing with Jared Abbrederis and Isaac Anderson as the starting receivers now. Lance Kendricks has really stepped up at tight end, giving them a very, very solid pass receiving option at tight end. But Toon and Abbrederis, Gilreath and Anderson, Toon and Abbrederis, 6'3", 6'2", Gilreath, Anderson, 5'11", 5'10". It's 4 different kinds of receivers he's going to have to work in. Timing for Toon especially, he's got that turf toe injury, lower leg. He said it himself, as a receiver, you have a lower leg injury, getting off the line, making those cuts could pose some problems, especially on the road. Spartan Stadium is very, very difficult environment. So Max, I'm just concerned about Tolzien not having enough time with the receivers.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were initially worried with the fumbles early in the season. Obviously, Tolzien had a little trouble handling the snaps, but that seems to be fixed, and I don't think that will be too big a concern. But you're right, chemistry with the wide receivers is something to watch, especially with a guy like Toon, who like we said is going to try coming out of his breaks. How is that the turf toe, going to hold up? And we'll see. But anyway, let's switch to the other side of the ball now. We'll go to the Wisconsin defense, and we'll keep it with you, Mike. Here, let's look for some positives on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got to start with the pass rush up front, especially. People are trying to undeniably the strength of the defense. In my part, J.J. Watt having a monster year. You see him every week making plays. Only game he wasn't one of the standout defensive players was last week against Austin Peay. Had a leg injury that he was in and out with, just minor. Came back. Louis Nzegu started off kind of soft, but really came on. He had 5, 6, 7 tackles last week against Austin Peay. So I'm really looking at the pass rush. Will hurt not having Chris Borland at linebacker, especially at the Badger package, which is the 3-3-5 package. Defensive coordinator Dave Doran likes to run on third downs, but linebackers are very deep. I'm personally not worried about the pass rush. That's got to be the strength going forward.
Yeah, Mike, I think you got to really, the pass rushers are standing out, and like you said, a lot of deep guys in that linebacking core. Guys like Kevin Rounds, David Gilbert's going to be in that 2-point stance to give this team more of a pass rush. So I think a lot of people were initially worried about the pass rush with Chris Borland going down, but there are a lot of options that this Wisconsin coaching staff is going to use. Even a guy like Manessa Garner, freshman wide receiver, is getting a couple of looks on the defensive end spot. So they're going to be creative, and they're going to get to the quarterback. I don't think that'll be an issue. But let's talk about what could be some of the issues going forward here, Adam. What are some of the negatives you have seen aside from maybe the pass rush, maybe being a liability without Borland? We always talk about the Wisconsin secondary. What are you looking at as something that could be a negative going forward?
Yeah, the loss of Borland, obviously, that's not only is he one of your starting linebackers, he's just a freak of an athlete. He's the kind of guy that can do anything, as he showed last year. But as usual, there's questions about the Wisconsin secondary. I mean, you started out the season, fall camp, coming out, not really sure who the starting cornerbacks were. You had the mix with Devin Smith, Antonio Finellis, and Miles Brinkley, and still Smith's kind of fallen out and become more of the nickel back, so you've got Finellis and Brinkley out there. I mean, the tackling has been better in the secondary. I think one thing you have to kind of look out for is that Jay Valai, aside from that blocked extra point, at the strong safety position, hasn't been that much of a factor, especially considering you want him to be the leader of your secondary. You want him to be the guy coming up and bringing those big hits that he's really known for. On the positive side, Aaron Henry, at the free safety position in his first full starting year at safety after moving from cornerback, has really, he had a big hit against Austin Peay, and he's kind of been more of a factor. But just with the way for the first quarter of the Austin Peay game that the secondary was just seemed to be getting shredded. I mean, after the first quarter, neither team had an incomplete pass. And against Stephen Threet, Arizona State, their spread offense, the secondary, basically anytime they were passing the ball, they were completing it and they were just moving up the field. So aside from that one big play against Arizona State where you saw a lot of missed tackles, there haven't been as many big plays, but you just have to wonder if you have a team that's going to be throwing a lot, like Ohio State with its two wides, DeVere Posey and Dane Sanzenbacher. You wonder if the secondary is going to be able to keep pace with some of those solid wide receivers that they have.
Yeah, we talked about how the secondary played against Arizona State. They did give up some yards to Stephen Threet, but longest completion was 18 yards. So I think the big plays are being limited, which is at least one step in the right direction for the Wisconsin secondary. And obviously they have a big test this weekend as they go up against Michigan State and Kirk Cousins. Guys, let's talk about the matchup. We've got two ranked teams to start the Big Ten conference schedule. And 2 years ago, this is a game on Wisconsin's schedule that gave them a lot of trouble. It was probably one of the low points for this program in the past couple of years. A personal foul penalty on Brett Bielema late, a holding call on John Moffitt late as the Badgers just give one away to Michigan State at the later stages of that game. Guys, let's talk about our keys to victory here. What are the three keys to victories? We'll each give one for the Badgers to come out on top and start the conference schedule with a win.
Max, you mentioned with the penalties, not getting behind early and running the ball. It sounds like two, but it's really one. Badgers, Wisconsin football is running the ball. Clay, White, Monty Ball. If they get behind early, if they get rattled, they're going to be forced to pass the ball. I really want to see John Clay. A lot of people are talking about he's going to get more carries now. They kind of were soft with him, limiting his carries in non-conference play. Now, likely to get a few more carries a game. I want to see him power running. Michigan State has their star linebacker, Greg Jones. Came back for his senior year. He's a monster. So Clay's going to have a great game, running the ball, no turnovers, no fumbles. Offensive line's going to have to clear those lanes, clear those holes for him. I want to see Badgers run the ball, keep a lead early, then they won't have to worry about getting rattled, getting the penalties.
I'll switch gears to the other side of the ball here, Mike, and a position group we talked about already at length today, the pass rushers for UW. It's going to be key to get pressure on Kirk Cousins, not let him get comfortable, especially at home, get in a rhythm with his receivers. And look, that front seven as a whole, one of the top groups, the top group in the Big Ten against the rush last year, got gashed a little bit against Arizona State. We want to make sure that unit is still up to par, and they're going against two good running backs from Michigan State, and Baker and Bell, both averaging about 8 yards a carry. So I think the front seven, getting pressure on the quarterback is going to be crucial, and obviously stopping the run in a game like this where both teams are going to be, smacking each other in the mouth with physical football. Whoever can really hold up on that front seven, I think, is going to have a huge key to victory there.
Well, Max, you mentioned a little bit earlier, the 2008 game, Wisconsin headed out to East Lansing. They seemed to have the ball won, but penalties, the holding call on Moffitt that erased a 21-yard run by John Clay that would have set up the Badgers to run off the clock and essentially win that game, which obviously was a season that was a little derailed, but that was definitely a low point. So you're talking about two ranked teams, especially with Wisconsin on the road. Max, you did mention in your radio show earlier, this could be one of Brett Bielema's biggest potential wins, beating a ranked conference foe on the road. It's something he has not done in his years here at Wisconsin. And going back to the penalties, if you've got two teams that could be very good, it could come down to a very tightly contested football game, and penalties are going to be something that could be a big factor. Obviously, Wisconsin showed how it could nip them in the bud 2 years ago, but the worry might be on Michigan State. Last week against Northern Colorado, they had 11 penalties for 121 yards and gave up 4 first downs on penalties to Northern Colorado. And looking at their 4 games, they've had 11 penalties in 3 of their 4 games, and that's obviously not going to cut it against a Big Ten competition. So even if they can, the Spartans can tone down the penalties, just the fact that they've committed so many, that might end up being the difference between Spartan upset in East Lansing or Wisconsin coming out of that game pretty comfortably with a win.
All right, well, Adam, you mentioned it. Brett Bielema has not been a ranked conference opponent on the road in his tenure. We'll see if it finally happens in a big game for the Badgers to start the conference season. And we talked about Rose Bowl aspirations and this team wanting to win a Big Ten title. They want to beat the Ohio States and Iowas of this conference. They're going to have to beat the Michigan States, and we'll see if they pass that first test on Saturday. Be sure to check our live blog throughout the game. We'll have full coverage in Monday's paper. For Adam and Mike, I'm Max. Thanks for watching.